Okay, chapter 13, lesson 3 on estimating products. So we have here, page 276, a conductor wants to copy a rehearsal schedule for each of the 77 musicians in the orchestra. It costs him 11 cents for each copy, so we definitely need to know that. So 11 cents per copy. And he has 77 musicians. So I'm writing down all the important information that I need to know. About, so that keyword about, how much will it cost to make all the copies? Okay? So, we are going, our first step, it's very similar to the lesson that we did the other day, okay, with estimating, and we're going to use rounding, okay? So, from the last chapter. So, basically what you're going to do is you're going to round the factors. So, you're going to round the 11 cents you have per copy, and you're going to round the 77 musicians, okay? So, let's start with the 77 musicians. Between 70 and 80, what is 77 closer to? 80. And also because if we look at the ones place and it has a 7, what happens to the 7 in the tens place? You give it a shove and it becomes 80. Okay? And then we look at the 11 cents, right? And is 11 cents closer to 10 cents or 20 cents? 10 cents, right? And we look at the 1, and it also tells us that the 1, you would give it a let it go. You will give it a rest, right? So then 11 cents changes to 10 cents. Very good. Okay? All right. So we're going to take the new rounded numbers, 80 and 10 cents, and we're going to multiply them together. Okay? So we take 80 times 0.10. Now, we just came off of multiplying with fractions, right? 10 cents, or the decimal 10 cents, can also be written as what? 1/10, right? So you could actually make this 80 times 1/10. If you prefer to multiply with fractions, you can do that. Or if you prefer to just do it with numbers like the decimal, you can do it that way too. But if I did it with fractions, it would be 80 over 1 times 1 over 10. And then I can cross reduce, and that becomes 8 over 1, which is equal to 8. Now my question asked me about how much will it cost. So it would cost me how much?
8 cents.
What? $8, not 8 cents. It would be 8 cents if it was 0.08, right? So it would cost $8 for 77 musicians to have a copy of the music. And think about it. It can't be 8 cents. It costs 11 cents to make one copy. So what 8 cents doesn't even make sense, right? And you have 77 people you need to make a copy for. Okay? So it will cost about $8 to make these copies. Sometimes you can use estimation to check if your answer is reasonable. 420 people went to the symphony one evening. Okay, so actually before we start the next problem. Okay, so we started reading the second problem. So sometimes, remember, you can use estimation, right, to check if your answer is reasonable. So if there were 420 people that decided they wanted to go watch a symphony, okay, one evening, and then that night, 0.75, okay, of the audience was adults. What would 0.75 be as a fraction?
1/2.
3/4. Think of quarters. Thank you. 3/4. Okay. Ronaldo says that there were about 310 adults in the audience. Is that reasonable? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to take both of these numbers into consideration, the 420 and the 310, okay? You're going to find what's called a low estimate and a high estimate, okay? So the high estimate would be siding on the side of 420, okay? So what if we rounded 420, what would that round to? Everyone?
400.
Is it closer to 400 or 500?
400.
400 adults, right? Okay, so we take the 400 and we multiply it by the, what we change 0.75 to. Is it closer to 70 or 80?
80.
Well, it's kind of in the middle, right? And because we're doing a low estimate, I'm actually going to take the lower estimate of 0.75, which would be 0.7, okay? This is my, what we call a low estimate, okay? Then we're going to do something called the high estimate, okay? And we're going to take 420 and we're going to round that to 450, okay?
Yeah, we just rounded down to
Okay? Because if I did 500, that's way too high. That's not close enough to my answer, right? So I'm going to round it to the next place value, which is the tens. Okay? So then instead of saying 500, 420 on the low end would be 400 and the higher end would be about 450, which is still a nice round number. Okay? So we take 450 and then we multiply that by, instead of 0.7 for the low, a high would be 0.8. Okay? So if we took the product of both of these answers, right? 400 times 0.7, which is fairly easy, right? Think of, okay, 400 times 7.
2,800.
Okay? And then we have 0.7, so we 280, right? Okay? And then we take 450 times 8 would be 360. Okay? So the product is somewhere between 28 and 360. Okay? So if it's somewhere between this and this, okay? Does 310 adults, is that a reasonable answer?
Yes.
Yes, it is. Okay? So Ronaldo's guess of 310 adults is a reasonable answer. Okay? Because it falls somewhere between what the low estimate and the high estimate would give you. Okay, so we have number 2 here, and we have the problem 213 times 0.22. Okay? And we want to round 213 to what?
200.
200, right? Okay. Times 0.22 would round to 0.2, which can be written as what? As a fraction.
1/5.
2
2
tenths, which is
1/5.
equal to
1/5.
1/5 simplified, right? So if I take 200 times 1/5, which I can easily do, the answer would be 40. Okay? So if I actually solve this problem for its actual value, I would get 46.86. Is 40 close to 46.86?
No.
Yes, it is.
But
It's only off by 6. That's not much. Okay, so you guys have to understand, you can't be like 1 off, right? If you come that close, great, okay? If you're 10 or under, you're great, okay? You've come pretty close to the answer. If I got an answer of 60, then that would mean what? Did I make an accurate estimate? No, but if I'm within 10 of the answer, then you've made a pretty good estimate, okay? So if I had taken 213 and I did on the high end, which is what? Like, let's say 220, yeah, okay? Times, and I made 22 on the high end,
30.
let's say 0.3, okay? So if I would have multiplied those two together, I would have gotten 66, right? between 40 and 66, that's a huge gap, right? So in this case, estimating higher is not to my advantage, right? I should have taken the lower estimate.